Yeah, well, I mean, this is welcome to our world. This is what it's been like for the last 50 years in Britain. I mean, people in this country are very sentimental about the National Health Service. They see it as this free service, and they look on America with horror, many people, and go, well, that's an awful place where, if you get run over by a car, the first thing that happens is you get checked whether you've got medical insurance. Well, I mean, that's not quite fair, is it? I don't think anyone gets turned away and allowed to die by...
No, that's asinine. You go directly to the emergency room, it's all free.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you've opened the floodgates here. I don't know how much it's going to cost the American taxpayer.
Well, James, stay there, because I want to talk to you about how it's enforced in England, because we all copy each other in tyranny. The worst aspects of each nation, the bureaucrats share it, but the IRS, 16 to 20,000 new employees garnishing your wages. We'll be right back with James Delingpole. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to dovetail the environmental population reduction movement in with the government health care, because they're on record saying, well, the case for killing Granny, the cover of Newsweek, shows an image of a plug pulled out of a wall and says, we got to get rid of old people. That's how we'll fix health care. So first they collectivize, then they start cutting massively. But you talked about hospitals where people for 2-3 weeks aren't given baths. Same thing with the VA where the government runs it. How do they enforce it in England? They just take the tax money with other taxes? Because here they're saying the IRS is now going to be our nanny and basically run our lives.
Oh, yeah, we have no choice. I mean, our tax burden has risen enormously in the last 12, 13 years under our socialist government. And they've spent more and more of our money on this creaking health system, which has not improved one jot. So it's got more and more expensive. It's acquired more and more layers of management, particularly, so that you've got more and more bureaucrats for every hospital bed, and fewer actual nurses. So the system has got, this is socialism in action. You get bureaucrats paid for at taxpayers' expense, and the system gets worse and worse and worse. And you have no say in the matter. You can't complain about the service you get because, as I said, you are treated like a supplicant, not like a customer.
So you pay for it with tax money, but that's not good enough. And then third world populations pour in who are on the dole and don't even, in many cases, work, and it gets more and more bankrupt. Where is this headed in England so we can get an idea where it's headed here?
Our country is going the way of Greece. We have a massive structural deficit, running into billions of pounds, and our government has not faced up to the fact that it cannot afford to spend any more of taxpayers' money. I mean, already the public sector of the economy has now just overtaken the private sector, which means that, for obvious reasons, if you've got ordinary, hardworking businessmen and people supporting more than 51% of the economy, you have a recipe for financial disaster. And this is what's happening now. We can't afford the NHS. We cannot afford we cannot afford anything, really. We are a nation of bureaucrats.
And the government's just getting started. They've got the snoops that dig through your trash. I saw headlines, they're recruiting 7-year-olds to report on their parents. Don't
even get me started on the environment. We have all three of our major political parties in Britain all singing from the same eco-fascist hymn sheet. We must reduce carbon, we must put up more wind farms, we must do this, we must that. Well, we are living in a topsy-turvy universe in which, on the one hand, our politicians are saying we must slash public spending. We can't afford to go on like this. And on the other, they are talking about all these crazed schemes like carbon capture. Carbon capture does not work. They are talking about spending £4 billion on trying to create clean coal plants. Well, clean coal, carbon capture, burying carbon dioxide underneath the soil. Some American researchers have looked into this. It is not possible. It does not work. So that is called urinating £4 billion of taxpayers' money up against the wall.
Well, what about Australia, where they announced millions of acres of people's own land that they can't run sheep and cows on, and they just say that's the way it is?
I know. I know this is rather pandering to your listeners' view of the world, but I have to say I incline to agree that we are seeing we have seen in the last decade, and is growing and more, we are seeing the approach of one world government. All these different bureaucracies around the world, they are conspiring to take away our freedom, and I fear very much for what's going to happen in the next decade. You know, I think unless we resist, certainly intellectually, and perhaps eventually it has to be physically, I don't know what's going to happen. We are going to end up in a sort of global tyranny.
More than a year ago, you published the book, Welcome to Obamaland. I have seen your future, and it doesn't work. And I'm not even confident that Republicans, when they get into power in a couple years, won't repeal this. I mean, you talk about your big three parties, your Tories, they're all going along with it because the same...
It is one of the big problems. And I have to say, Alex, I am rather relying on you Americans to save our sorry asses, because you are our only hope. Over here, we live in the United Socialist Republic of Europe. You know, Europe makes all our decisions now, and Europe is stuffed to the gills with socialist bureaucrats who want nothing better than to take away individual liberty, increase taxes, increase regulation. So we are screwed as far as, you know...
Well, James,
yep.
I want to get into the mindset of these people. We have a psychological scientific study showing what a pack of pirate criminals they are. Stay there.
We're on the